Okay, that's us recording.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome to today's session. Let's start by telling you who we are. So my name is Mary William and I am one of the NLP practitioners. And I also work with our non-for-profit charitable organization, Superheroes. I work both with kids and with parents. I run one-to-one sessions and I also run some workshops. I've got my parent-child therapy clinic in Milton Keynes. And we run online workshops face-to-face when allowed. I mean, before the pandemic, hopefully again soon. And yes, and welcome to today's session. And Katrina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Mary. Yeah, my name is Katrina Buckley. I'm also an NLP for Kids practitioner, and we all work as part of the team. I'm also really proud to be part of the not-for-profit organisation Superheroes, which is obviously bringing this to you tonight, and the series of different webinars and question and answer sessions that we've been doing, and also some fun stuff with the quizzes. So it's really, really good to be part of it. I'm also, as I say, an NLP for Kids practitioner. I have my own coaching and mentoring business, School of Thought, and I work with young people, but I also work with parents, and I do a lot of work with schools when obviously we are allowed in schools at the moment. That's not, but we've been doing some online stuff with schools and also doing some online things and workshops with parents. So that's a little bit about what I do. I've been doing this for several years now, and I also have personal experience with two children, two teenagers. Well, one's a tween, as they're known now, and the other one's a teenager. And both completely different and opposite in their their emotional states and who they are as people. So come from quite a broad spectrum there. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. And and I was also, for anybody who's maybe joining or listening to this later, I actually was the person who was delivering the webinar last night, but nobody could see me. So yeah, I did promise you that I was real, so I'm here.
Yes, lovely. Thank you very much. And as you all know, today's session is a question and answer. It's an open question and answer. So you could ask any question. You could either type it in the chat box or just unmute yourself and ask your question. So we'll give you a minute if you want to sort of type any questions. We've also received a couple of questions today from parents, and we're going to answer those as well. Katrina, shall we start with one of the questions that were sent to us today by a parent while we wait for everyone to type the questions?
Okay, so I've got the questions here, so I'll read it out. Well, okay, so the first one is, when my 7-year-old daughter gets angry, she screams very loud and it rattles my brain. I get instantly angry and shout, then it ends in tears. How can I stop her from shouting? Yeah. So that's probably quite a common one.
Yeah. So, I mean, just there's a word here that sort of drew my attention as you were reading the question, Katrina, how can I stop her from shouting? And we all know that like any behavior is partly the parent and partly the child. And sometimes we could also look at what we can do to change what our children are doing. And it reminds me with what you were talking about yesterday, Katrina, the fight, flight, and freeze response. And it seems to me that this sort of panic response is happening both to the child and the parent. Would you like to elaborate on this from what you said yesterday?
I think you've picked up on that, spot on. I would agree with you there, Mary, because when we're both in that situation, I touched on the fight, flight, and freeze response last night, the 3 Fs, when I was talking about, and I don't want to confuse it, when I was talking about the chimp brain and the human brain and, how they sort of cross over. But, just to kind of keep it simple, when we have a high emotional state, we're in a heightened emotional state, which in this instance the daughter probably is in a heightened state, and her response then is to make, is to scream. Now that is her, our automatic sort of I suppose we have this natural reaction in life to protect us from something that we see as a threat. And when we do that, we respond in a particular way. So we can liken it to the chimp. We say, chimp, when we think about the chimp in the jungle, they're there, with that sense of threat all the time. So we also have that instinct within us. The problem is we don't live in the jungle, but our chimp thinks that, life for us out there is similar to the jungle. So everything is a danger and a threat. Now, if you think about a chimp in the jungle, they take that threat on. So they will either fight their way through it, so they'll take on the threat to protect themselves, or they'll run away. So we're the same, we respond in the exact same way. So it sounds to me like in this instance, the daughter, her fright mechanism is kicking in. It's all of this, the anger's building up, and it comes out in anger, and we shout to get it out. Because naturally, when we go into that phase, that stage of flight, and we have that sort of reaction to it, we get the adrenaline rush in the body because it's there to protect us. So we've got to do something with it. And usually what happens is we shout to get it out, or we hit, or we take on the fight, or we run away, because the adrenaline is there to help us and protect us if we need to run from the danger. So in this instance, it sounds like, this energy is there and we have to get it out some way, and therefore we're shouting. Then what happens is Dad, the trigger then for Dad is the loud noise of his daughter shouting, and then that triggers the response in him that then says, wait a wee minute, there's something there I don't like, I'm not liking this is a danger. I'm then going to respond, and I'm then going to get angry as well. So it sounds to me like they're both caught in that cycle. Very similar reactions, very similar responses to something.
So you're saying we've got 5 responses?
Sorry, I didn't catch it there, Mary.
So are you saying then we've got 2 fight responses here?
We've got 3 actually. We've got two kind of main ones. The third one kind of comes loosely into, I would say, maybe the second one. So you've got the fight, which is where we get angry, we want to take something on, we want to protect ourselves. So if a lot of instances I'll use with parents is if somebody is shouting at you, your instinct is either to back away from them, or to confront them, or to just withdraw completely. So if you're in a situation where somebody's shouting at you all the time, you may become that you just won't talk to them anymore, you withdraw, and you just wish they would go away. So that's the kind of freeze response, where we just decide that if we go unnoticed, if we can try and just stay here and let the threat go away, then it won't affect us anymore. So sometimes we can just withdraw into ourselves, we can just try and escape from that type of behaviour. So we've got the 3 different responses that we do when we go into that heightened emotional state. Brilliant.
So the daughter who's shouting, the 7-year-old, is in a fight response, right?
Yes.
Anger. And the dad who shouts as well, or he feels angry, he's also in a fight response, right? So we've got 2 fight response, so it can only escalate, right?
Yes, it's going,
So we need to look at, so what do we do to de-escalate, which obviously we don't expect a 7-year-old to know how to de-escalate. She's continuing with her screaming. And how can we support the parent to sort of de-escalate here?
Well, there's a few things I touched on last night, from the perspective that, there's certain things, the first stage is for the parent to can change their reaction. When we're in a point of any sort, and this point is when it escalates, it's becoming a confrontation then, isn't it? And a lot of what I spoke about last night, when we have conflict or confrontation, we need to look at it as an opportunity to change something. So in the first instance, as the parent, then we can change our reaction. And then in doing so, we then have the opportunity to discuss with our daughter, how can we change their reaction? Because obviously they're having a response to something that is overwhelming to them, which is why they're responding with the anger. So we have to be able to be in a calm place to do that. So a lot of things we spoke about last night is just really just stepping away. So at the moment, the trigger is the loud noise. So what we could do is just remind ourselves in that instance, well, that's their emergency, it's not mine. They're looking for my support, they need my help. So to pause, so when we feel that that sort of heightened emotion coming on, you know, we feel the adrenaline kicking in, the anger, is to pause, just stop and pause. And
That's
then
right.
just sort of change our breathing pattern, because as soon as we start to get into that state, that emotional state, our breathing changes. The heart starts to accelerate and the breathing becomes more shallow. If we change that breathing pattern to something that's more gentle and rhythmic, then it sends a new signal to the brain that says it's actually okay, it's fine, we're safe, we've got this, we can deal with it. So when we're then calming ourselves down, and then if we take a few moments just to let it settle, you know, either step away from it or give it some time for our thinking brain to come in, then we can then approach it logically, and we will have a solution. We'll be able to talk about it and approach our daughter and say, right, okay, what happened, what was the scream, and then we can start to understand it. We can then start to listen to their emotions a bit more instead of getting caught up in our own emotions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That's very, very helpful, Katrina. And I wonder if whispering is a good idea, because when you start whispering and the child is shouting, you're probably drawing their attention. So in a way, you're breaking their state, you're breaking their emotional state, and you're naturally shifting them to another state because you're making them curious. Because when someone's whispering, it's like connected as something, you become curious. So is it a secret? Is it what? So it's not easy in the moment. If I think of myself and the anger is going up, it's not easy. But if I know this simple tool and I decide, like, I'll just whisper something, even if it's not very meaningful, it's possible that I'm going to break the state of the child and be able to sort of engage the thinking brain, as you said, and de-escalate. Yeah,
Absolutely, because we de-escalate. So if we're in a calm place, we're then going to think more creatively like that. So I can whisper, I can use a distraction technique that is going to divert the attention away from the emotion, that big emotion that they're going through. You know, and then they'll then that gives them the opportunity to start to settle down, because we want them to be able to sort of settle their own emotions down, and we can do that by giving them a form of distraction. And that's a really good idea, you know, just to do the opposite of what they're doing. Yeah.
And it's possible. I mean, again, every child is different. There isn't going to be just one answer in every situation, because what may work for a child may be very annoying for another child. So it's possible to name and describe what's happening or what they're going through. So in a way to maybe acknowledge it, validate it. Or I could see you're not happy at all at the moment. What's the matter? So just name what's happening and maybe try to sort of be present with the child. For some children, depending on the age, they may think like, leave me alone, of course I'm not happy. But for another child, they may think, yeah, you're hearing me, you're hearing what's happening with me. So it's important to acknowledge that every child is different, and the same child is different from one situation to another. So it's about like having those tools and sort of gauging what's going to work in every situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because no one size fits all, really. And I think I did touch on that last night. You know, we have to adapt it to our own family unit and to the individuals within that family unit. But the importance is if we're calm, then we can deal with the situation differently. And, you know, children tend to mirror what's happening around us. So if they see us responding to a situation with anger, then they may develop that themselves. But if they see us being calm and changing our behaviour, our reactions, then they're going to notice that, and they're going to want to know, what are they doing differently. So we can teach them those skills. We can teach them how they can deal with those big emotions. You know, as you said at the start there, at the age of 7, it's difficult for them. They don't know what to do. They've got a big emotion. They just don't know what to do with it. So we have to show them. We have to show them what to do with it. And we're both back in the calm place, you know, then you can have that conversation, and then you can talk about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, you know, and what can we both do differently in that situation, and what's going to help each other to be able to do it differently. What's going to help, you know, your daughter to be able to deal with the big emotion so that she doesn't scream, and explain what the screaming does, that it's loud, it's uncomfortable, what can we do differently? And then they understand, they're starting to learn about acceptable, and unacceptable behaviour, and how that's going to impact on other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brilliant, brilliant. I can see a question in the text box. The question says, any tips on helping my 11-year-old who's very resistant to trying new foods?
Yeah, that's I think as parents have probably been through that a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
I've had both instances, and I think sometimes, it doesn't say here whether they've always been that way or if this is a new thing. I think children go through different stages. When they're younger, they're open to trying out new things. Well, one of my children was open to trying out anything, quite happy, really sort of versatile with food. The other one was just like, no, simple. But now we're starting to see a little bit of reversal. The other one's starting to go, oh, I don't really want to try that now, and they're becoming less open to trying new things. But I think in that situation there, it's like, I think introducing things like slowly and in small, and trying to find things that what do they like. So if they do like a particular type of food, how can I introduce and make it slightly different, so that it's just not the same thing all the time. Add a little bit of versatility into what they already like, the food groups that they do like, and just build up slowly from there. A good starting point, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the mind always rejects what's unfamiliar and goes to what's familiar, right? So familiar food, familiar place, familiar room, familiar everything. And so the question is, can I make the unfamiliar, the new type of food, similar in any way to something that's familiar? So similar in color, in shape, in texture, whatever. So maybe present an element of familiarity with the unfamiliar, and maybe that may draw the child to try.
Yeah, to try. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
About the color as well. It's sometimes it's about the texture too. So it's about, if they like a particular texture of a food, then introduce more foods that have that texture. So I know there's, with my two children, there's certain foods that they just will not eat because the texture's not good. So we tend to avoid the texture of that at the moment, but we introduce other things so that we can try and build that. So it's maybe not quite the same texture, but it's sort of in between. So yes, I like that idea of, sort of introducing that texture. But also get them involved perhaps in preparing and cooking a meal, so that they're getting involved in understanding and learning about the food. So it's not just, we've made this, we want you to eat it. So they're actually getting involved, they're independently getting involved, they're taking responsibility, they choose the menu, they choose the food that's going into it. At first, it may just be all the things that they like, and that's fair enough. But as they get used to it and we encourage them more, and if we eat more of the things that they just like, so if they start to see us getting involved and it's not just one-sided, and we're encouraging them and they build up that sort of confidence in themselves and confidence in working with food, then yes, that might encourage them to be a bit more open to trying out new things.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of engaging them, because maybe when they're engaged in preparing it, they sort of know the ingredients and they've smelled it, they've felt it raw, and you could also be creative. You don't have to prepare a meal in exactly the same way you prepare it. You could ask them, what should we add, what spices, what flavors, whatever, and like be creative, and that makes them more adventurous with trying, and more like brave to try new food, I guess.
It does, doesn't it? Because what it's like when you do it yourself, you take more pride in it than somebody, something it's nice to get dinner cooked for you. But if you're doing it yourself, you feel quite proud and you want people to taste it and you want people to give you feedback. So if they're taking a pride in it and they're trying out things themselves and they're seeing you working with them, then they're going to be more open to trying out new things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone would like to ask a question, maybe unmute yourself and ask the question, or anyone would like to add to what we said or ask further questions. I mean, it's also an opportunity for you to comment, share experience, share ideas, examples. So it's going to be beneficial for everyone. So we'd just like to invite you to please unmute yourself and sort of share whatever.
Hi, it's Katie.
Hi.
I was going to say, listen, but I've got 2 children as well. I'm obviously doing the training, but what I have a 9 and 11-year-old boys, both completely different personalities. My 9-year-old has ADHD and is very lively, but you know, most people are very fond of him. But in social situations, I find myself always very on edge about what's going, because there's no filter, so what's going to come out of his mouth or what he's going to do next. And there's, you know, nothing ever dreadful has happened, but I still, you know, at this I find myself, and probably more so than when he was younger, because I think when most toddlers and little ones can be a little bit unpredictable, but now he's that bit bigger, he looks a bit older, and I just find myself on edge in social situations. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, whatever's going to happen to him next. So I'd like, you know, what I would like to do, I think, is, and I do stay calm and patient, but I'd like to just learn to just relax with it, and what will be, and I'll deal with things as and when they come up. But yeah, kind of enjoy situations rather than being on edge, because I find myself sometimes I kind of think I'm not going to enjoy something because I'm already worrying about what's going to happen, rather than if I just go with it. And sometimes I think we've been somewhere where I'll try and wrap it up quickly and get home because it's going well and I want it to end going well. But yeah, I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Katie, for sharing. Katie, do you think your son feel how you feel? Like, do you think he feels your like?
I think he probably does feed off it sometimes, yeah. And I don't think anybody else would notice. To everybody else, I'm this kind of cool, calm and collected person, but I think he can feed off it. And sometimes I'm kind of taught, before we get somewhere, I'll write, this is how I want you to behave when we're, but I think sometimes that goes against me because he's feeling in that kind of lively mode and off he goes. But probably he does feed off that a little bit.
Yeah. Katrina, have you got any thoughts to share?
I think what I was, and Katie, this is probably something that you'll probably relate to and you're aware of yourself already, is it's the expectation that you're putting on yourself in this instance, Katie. You know, it's probably perfectly fine, but you have an expectation and a belief that this is going to happen. So when in your mind you believe, you know, it is going to happen. So we put expectation and pressure on ourselves that we think we have to fit in with social, you know, with society in general. We have to behave in a particular way. It's what's expected of us. But that's not the case. You know, as long as the behaviours, you know, it's not causing any harm, it's not doing anything, we can sometimes overthink things and we can put that big expectation on ourselves. And of course, naturally, when we do that, our children pick up on that, they sense it, and, you know, they tend to do the opposite of what we want. So if, you know, you're saying all the positive words there, you know, to be calm and relaxed, then what we have to do is we have to take that pressure off ourselves. We have to remove the pressure on us so that we can get into that state.
I think that comes a little bit from childhood as well. I was one of 4 girls, and we just always would have behaved, and the expectations are there, and we would have lived up to that expectation. But I think, you know, then my mum and dad will come, I've got these 2 lively boys, and I think it's just so different. And I think I am a people pleaser, and you know, just always would follow those social rules because he's quite different. I think it's this letting him be who he is with this kind of inner pull of, but I wouldn't behave like that, or, you know, it's,
I suppose we always have to just kind of respect that we are all different, and I think you mentioned the ADHD, so there is different characteristics within there already within an individual person, and how we see something isn't necessarily going to be the same belief that your son has, and you know what he's doing, as you say, it's a belief and a value that you hold within you, so therefore that expectation that you put on yourself to do that. Even just having a chat with your son and then talking about, what does he think is positive, acceptable behaviour, and just have a casual chat amongst yourselves and, share it that way. Because if he's picking up on your, not your anxiety, but your, their stress about wanting to be a particular way, sometimes it's good if we just talk to them. And just and bring them in on the conversation and talk to them about, what do you think is acceptable, and you do this and we do this, and what about mum, and share your own different beliefs and share how you would behave in the situation as well, so that you're having just an open conversation.
Yeah, I think it's that excitement. Once he gets to that excited level, all those, he might follow those kind of, we can do that at home, but once he's in that excitement with lots of people around, you may as well almost cover his ears, because he's not in that kind of state where he's going to listen to anything. So
we were talking about the chimp earlier, and the chimp's kicked in by this point, but the chimp's excited, and the chimp's gone into overdrive with excitement, and obviously we're not hearing at this point. We've blocked everything else out, and we're really literally not hearing anything. So it's maybe just even a visual cue at that point of something that you can do to help him, just visually, to remind him, in a positive way, so that he then, when he catches it, he goes, oh, okay, that's the trigger to, okay, just to divert away and do something else, so that he can take some of that excitement away, the overexcitement.
Yeah, no, the visual is a good idea. Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions or comments, whether you'd like to type them or unmute yourself and ask? I think the interaction is brilliant. So please, I just want to encourage you to unmute yourself, share a story, an example, a question. Something that you do yourself that works really well, and it's good for us to share these us amongst each other, because sometimes we remember something that we're doing really well, and then we can then suggest that, and somebody else can maybe use that. Okay, absolutely. Something coming in the chat box. Yes, how can I wean my child off sugar? How can I wean my child off sugar? How old is your child, if we may ask? Okay, 8. Right. Okay. I suppose my question would be, is it off sugar completely, or is it to take control of the sugar intake? Is it what specifically is it you're sort of aiming for? Yeah, exactly. A little bit of information and background of what the situation is would be actually helpful, because obviously sugar sort of triggers the dopamine, the reward system in the body, and it's sort of important to sort of know a little bit more. But I actually worked with children who had strong sugar craving, I would say. And sometimes it's important to understand whether they are trying to meet an emotional need and meet this through sugar. Lots of studies talk about if I am bored, what do I eat? If I want comfort, if I want fun, and so on, what do I eat? And roughly the studies say that if my need is need for love, like I want someone to express, like I need more expression of love, I'd go and eat chocolate instead. Or if I need entertainment and fun, I'd go and eat sweets. Or if I need comfort, I'll eat carbohydrates or maybe cakes. So sometimes, it depends on what the craving level is. It's important to see, is there something else I could sort of work on to help the child meet their need to reduce the craving? And sometimes when I work with children, I almost gave them a plan, like, I don't know, if you think I really want to eat this bar of chocolate, now what can you do? And one of them would say, I'll go and hug my mom, or I hug my teddies. And then they connect with this feeling of love, and they think, you know what, I don't want this chocolate anymore, type of thing. That's just an area of it. It's obviously not everything. but there will be a question as well whether the child thinks, you know what, I'd like to reduce the sugar, or no, I like it to be this way. So whether the child is willing, on board or not, and I guess an 8-year-old will not be. And some people do, for example, sugary sweet stuff on a particular day of the week. Some people do it, I know some children say sweet Sunday, so sweets are only on a Sunday, and it becomes a new routine that we set in the house, and it actually makes them look forward to it, but it's still controlled, so it's only once a week, which could be a boundary that you could set with your child. I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Katrina.
Well, I'm just looking, Simone's come back with some information there. So she's saying, yes, comfort might be the issue in the way a smoker needs a cigarette. Yes, he wants to sometimes and convinces me he's up for stopping, but he falls off the wagon easily. I love your terminology there, Simone. So yeah, I think what you said there is really actually it's kind of interesting what you were saying there about the sugar and our need for it and how we go to the different types of sugar, the sweets, the chocolate, and the carbs depending on our emotional need at that time. I think as well, yes, it sounds to me like if he's doing it in secret, then obviously there is something there that he's needing to reconnect with, and it's identifying what that is. It could be not just removing the sweets altogether, but maybe just having a point where we having a boundary in place, like you were saying there, Mary, about when is the cut off. This is when we stop eating sweets, so that we're not sort of sneaking them, and then just hide them away so they don't have access to them, so lock them away, put them out the road, but bring them out during the day so that they're available, they're not completely gone, but at a certain time they're put away at the road. So that is the signal, the trigger to say that that's the sweets gone, they're away now, they're locked away, they've gone, and we'll see that we'll get them back tomorrow. That's another option, just to help them understand that yes, this is okay time, that is not okay time. I was trying to move him to just natural sugars with not sweets at all, but he couldn't cope with that.
Yeah.
So it is possible that he's building up this sort of dependency on the sweets as a way to sort of soothe an emotional need. Possibly if it's at night time, he's doing he feels a need for the sweets at night time. Is there something that you could do together at night time as part of the bedtime routine that's sort of soothing and it's connecting and it's reassuring and it's giving you time together, if that's not already part of what you're doing?
Yeah, something that's fun, that is entertaining and fun, because I guess that's what he's seeking when he eats sweets at night. But maybe also what can he benefit if he stops eating sweets at night? What can he benefit if he just cuts on sweets in general? If a discussion like this, what can he benefit? What can he have instead of sweets that is fun, enjoyable, entertaining, something? I assumed he or she. I don't know.
No, it's a boy. It's a he. Yeah.
Okay. I thought so. Yeah. So what would he get that would make him really excited? Something that excites him, because he is looking for the payoff he gets from the sweets, which is the feeling, this reward sort of mechanism that happens in his body. And so what can he get if he cuts down on sweets or stops eating sweets completely at night? And maybe get him engaged in thinking about it. And yeah, I mean, in NLP there are quite few techniques. Yes.
Yeah, I think doing the fun I think spending that quality time together at night time is giving him that investment so that he doesn't need the stimulation from the sweets. Is a good way. Maybe something fun and exciting earlier in the day so that sort of transitioning into bedtime as we're going to bed. But definitely those things like he's wanting to to connect and he's using the sweets to help him with that, to give him that that sense that he's, you know, as you said, the fun, exciting, but we obviously don't want him to do that at bedtime because he wants to go, you want him to go to sleep. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So hopefully that's been helpful, Simone.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or comments or anything you would like to share? Okay. While people are maybe thinking of other questions or typing, shall we take some of one of the questions that was sent to us, Katrina?
Yes, so let me just go and I'll pull up next one. So we've got one here, how to stop shouting at your kids. It's a very general one. I don't think it was a specific one from a parent. It was just a very, it's a, lots of parents say, how do I stop shouting at my child? So yes, a very generic one, not one size fits all again, because it does depend on what's happening in the moment and the circumstances and where we are in the time. But yes, something I suppose is a bit of a problem for a lot of us. What is anything you would maybe want to pick up on that one, Mary, about how to stop shouting at your kids?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know in the moment it's not easy. I mean, we're sitting here, we're answering questions, but actually when you're triggered in the moment, it's not that easy. But when I have the tool prior to the moment, I'm hopefully going to be able to have a better chance of sort of using the tool. And I guess shouting, like any other response that we don't like, I ask myself, what is this going to achieve? Like if I shout, what is this going to change? Is it going to change the behavior? Is it going to stop it? Is it going to make my child better? Is it going to make me feel better? What outcome might I get from shouting? And I guess we know that nothing is just going to upset everyone, right? And sometimes the shouting is where a parent thinks, I have authority here. Like sometimes it could be that shouting is power.
Yeah.
And when we shout because we feel out of control but want to be in control, we enter what is called power struggle. So I'm struggling for, I am after having power, and my child now is struggling having power. So in a way, knowing that this is actually intensifying the problem rather than solving it, and actually I have power by staying calm and in control, as in calm, contained. Nothing is too much. I can take it. I can embrace it. I could listen. I can sort of understand. And maybe start by not trying to understand what's happening, but validate what's going on. I could see you are blah, blah, blah. So validate what's happening with the child in a way, allowing myself as the parent to calm down, but allowing the child to calm down as well. Because, and start to be a little bit curious what's happening, because I'm shouting because the child has now done something and this behavior is triggering me. The reason I'm shouting is all what I'm focusing on is the behavior. That's why I'm shouting. But behavior is communication. So the child is behaving in such a way because they're trying to communicate something, whether communicated to the parent or just express something inside them. When I focus on the behavior, so the behavior could be that the child dropped something really expensive and broke it, and I shout because I can't tolerate what has just happened, right? But if I think like, okay, so why did the child actually break it? They just didn't do it purposefully to destroy. Even if they did, that means something is sort of going inside them. And as I become curious to find out what's actually happening with my child, I am activating my compassion instinct more. And when we activate compassion, it becomes harder to shout. So I know that some things are easier said than done, but the more we feel them, become more convinced that that's what's going to be helpful and practice them, they become a lot easier. So instead of just having the lens so much on what has just happened, this behavior, switch the lens to what's going inside my child, and I'll find it much easier to almost take a step back and stop myself from shouting. What do you think, Katrina?
No, I think I totally agree with what you're saying there. When we focus on at that moment in time, we're focused on the behaviour, and our chimps kicked in again. And I'll keep talking about the chimp. People are like, what is the chimp? So the chimps kicked in again. So we're responding as well, you know, with our behaviour, because we are just we're responding in a moment. And you know, my take on that is that at the moment in particular, and you know, and we shout at our kids not just in this particular period in time, all the time, but at this particular time and moment, I think life is really overwhelming for everybody. You know, COVID arrived, then lockdown was thrust upon us. We're homeschooling, we're working from home, we can't go anywhere, and we're sort of locked up with our loved ones 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it kind of probably feels like there's no escape. So tensions are going to be running high. And our emotions are going to be really heightened. So chimps in there fighting all the time. We really aren't used to spending this amount of time together without distractions, really, because if you think about it, we're usually all leading our own lives, but all of a sudden we're all together. I think what happens is we end up putting a lot of expectations on ourselves to be perfect and to do everything that we want to do. So we're juggling everything, and with an expectation that we've got to be perfect, where children have to behave in a particular way, they have to do this. We have to get the homeschooling, whether it's stressful or not. We will still shout at them to make sure they get it done because the school are asking us to do it. And we have to make sure that we're giving them an education, and we have to make sure we're doing it in the best way possible. So it's expectation, expectation, expectation. And on top of that, you're probably still trying to work from home as well. And there's no break in the pattern, and the routine is just the same. So it's just like, it's a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it? So I think at the moment, emotions are more heightened than they were. And as we've mentioned earlier, you get this huge energy release when we get stressed. We've got all this energy, we've got to get rid of it somehow. So we shout. So we get caught up in the emotion of the moment because we are feeling as if we're juggling everything. Nobody's doing anything that we're asking. We're focusing on all the sort of negative stuff, the stuff they're not doing. And we're putting all these expectations on ourselves to get stressed out. And again, I sort of reinforce this a lot. If we are in that moment and we are seeing the behaviour and it's something that we don't want, we pause and we step, you know, we pause, we take that breath and we step away and we let ourselves get back into thinking mode to see, right, okay, what's actually going on here? What is it I'm getting annoyed at? What's important in the moment? Is it shouting at them right now because A, they're not doing their schoolwork, or they're not doing this, or I believe they're not listening to me? Or is it stepping away, getting a breath, right, what am I going to say? What do I want from this? What is it I actually want them to do? And then we go back in with that plan and we get the outcome that we want. By shouting, like you said, we are not going to get the outcome that we want. We're not understanding what's happening in that situation because we're too caught up in that emotion to really be rational about it. So step away and come back to it for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do we have any questions here? Yeah, I think. How can I? Okay, so there's a question here, and it says it relates to what I said before about the child question we were answering regarding sweets. How can I get him brushing his teeth independently? I have to nag so much. Okay. 8-year-old. So what's stopping him brushing his teeth independently? What does he not like about it? I guess is an important question to ask, and actually be curious. Sometimes it's just very simple thing. And is it the independently or is it the brushing the teeth? And maybe what have you tried so far? Do you have a toothpaste with, I think he feels there's something, there's always something better to do. Okay, okay, I was going to talk from another angle. Right.
My thought there was sorry, Mary, my thought there was that you know, because you were saying earlier about the sweets and the sugar and that emotional need, and I'm just wondering here, you're saying because you have to nag him. So when we get into a situation of nagging someone, they tend to expect that reaction because we're giving them attention. So is it possible that he allows himself to get distracted to do other things because it means that you're going to come in and nag at him and ask him to go and brush his teeth? So he's getting that attention from you. Because you know he's not doing something, he knows exactly the reaction to expect from you, so he'll keep doing it because that's exactly what mum does. I know mum will come in and ask him again, and this is all unconscious. You know, he's not thinking about it, it's all happening unconsciously for him, and it's just become a habit. Mum comes in and asks me, she asks me, I answer her, I get her attention, then I go back to doing what I was doing. So it's about breaking the pattern, it's about changing your reaction and focusing on, well, what's really important in this situation. But we want him to brush his teeth. Right, how are we going to do that? Nagging isn't working, so we need to do something completely different. We need to do something that's completely, you know, irrational, do the opposite of what he might be expecting in that situation. I don't know if you've got any suggestions on what that possibly, what that radical action could be. But yeah, so there's things that you can do, you know, like I don't know if you follow a routine at home, so that there's like kind of structure, so that he knows this is when we do teeth. This is, we do the teeth in the morning, we do the teeth at night time. Visual reminders are also helpful. So you tend to find that a lot of the time with children, when they get distracted like that, and we go and ask them several times, they're not really listening to us. So it can be an attention thing, but it can also be a case of that they're just distracted and they're not listening, and they're not really processing what we're saying to them. If we use visuals, it's very clear to them what we expect from them. It's clear, it just says, it's time to brush your teeth. And it reminds them, oh, that's what I must do. So if you put a visual up, even in the bathroom, when he's at the sink, that is a picture of a toothbrush, then he might actually then go, oh, brush my teeth. You know, it's that visual reminder. Yeah. And if we put it into a routine as well, then that also helps act as a trigger. It becomes a natural way to do something. But what I would suggest is be persistent and consistent, because it's about 21 days, roughly, they say, for a new behaviour change. So we've got to keep doing it, we've got to keep doing it. So keep the visual, keep that, you know, don't do the nagging, but just do the visual prompts or the routine, and just check in and just say, how did we get on with the routine today? And then, you know, you can just sit and do it that way, as opposed to the constant reminder of, you haven't brushed your teeth yet. So we can then say, oh, did we do our teeth today then? And if he says no, just say, well, let's go and do it now then, because it's on the schedule. And that just helps to maybe reinforce the message.
Definitely. It's also, I think, possible to arrange an activity or something to be done after brushing the teeth that he will enjoy. So, and then instead of reminding him like directly of brushing his teeth, you could say something like, when you've brushed your teeth, then you can do blah blah, whatever you have planned after. And that may just excite him. His subconscious mind is going to probably say, let's get brushing teeth out of the way so I could do
this.
Yeah. I mean, you could also give him a simple choice. Would you like to brush your teeth before bedtime story or after bedtime story? For example, like give him like a simple choice where he's going to do two things, brushing teeth and another one, and ask him whether he would like to brush the teeth before or after. And maybe if he has a choice, then it's not you nagging or you asking. You've taken yourself completely out of the equation, and he's choosing what to do first and what to do next. Yeah, I guess that's more to the question.
Second again.
Getting my attention.
I was thinking putting reminders on his iPad.
Yeah, reminders on his iPad is a good idea. You said the visuals, Katrina, right? I think visuals and routine. And I mean, it's possible to do like a laminated card with everything he does, a night routine, and he could tick it, then you could rub it and tick it the next day. And what this does is it takes the parent out of the equation. So you remove resistance, because our brain is so wired to resist. So when someone says something, the resistance sort of like kicks in straight away. But if there's no resistance, you get agreement. So if you take yourself completely out of the equation, and it's not you who's saying, it's actually the sheet of paper saying it, the laminated card says it, then, and he's taking control of ticking it off. And this feeling of I've ticked it all off is actually a good, rewarding feeling. Then maybe he will be more inclined to do it, or find it fun, or at least be okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, and I like the way you were talking about the being motivated to do it, and is he motivated to having that reward, to doing the tick, to saying I've done it. And what you can do is you can get him involved in creating the visuals himself. He can draw the picture, you can put it up in the bathroom door as a reminder before you leave. Have you brushed your teeth? And it's that constant reminder every time he's in the bathroom. Oh, teeth, yeah, brush teeth. And it's not mum reminding him, but it's that constant reminder when I leave. It's like you go into restaurants and different places, they say, have you washed your hands? Oh yeah, I should wash my hands. So you have that sort of it removes you having to remind them, but they're involved in putting the schedule in place themselves. But you could also consider he may be motivated away from something. So you're saying there about putting reminders on his iPad. Well, maybe you use that as a way to say, well, you brush your teeth and then you get the iPad. Because it may be that, oh, I'm going to lose something that I want to do, so I'm going to go and do that first so that I can get that. So we're not always motivated towards something. Sometimes we're motivated away from something. So if we're going to lose something or get a bad result, I think I used the example last night, that sometimes we have children, you have kids who study hard to get the good results because they're motivated to get the good result, whilst other children come across as just being lazy and uninterested. Well, what actually happens there is they work away, they sit the test, they get the poor result, then they're motivated to change it, and then they then say, oh, I'm going to go and change it, I don't want that again, and then they're motivated to take action. So we're different. So it's working out what kind of makes him respond, what makes him react, and then putting something in place that kind of supports that. So the iPad might be a way of doing it, but just figuring out what way. Is it to remind him and give him the reward, to kind of give him that, oh yes, if I do that, it'll be fine and I've got my reminder, or is it taking it away and then giving it back once he's done it? So you'll know yourself some more what would work best in that situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, or anything you'd like to share?
Whilst people are maybe coming up with some questions or anything or comments, I was just having a thought there about that situation we were talking about, how to stop shouting at at the kids. Another thing, because we were just talking about routine there, another thing that helps there is routine. Sometimes we've touched on boundaries already. So having boundaries in place about what is acceptable and not acceptable in both cases, on mutual respect. But routine is very important, and it can actually help us to have control back. Because a lot of the times when we're shouting, we feel out of control. So if we can put that control in, that helps us. It also is great about helping expectations in the house, so everybody knows what is expected of them. So it's really, really positive. It gives predictability as well. And it helps children and feel safe and secure, but it also allows us to build in fun time as well. So everything's not just about we have to get this done, we have to get that done. It's about saying, well, if we do all of this, then we get the fun time. And it helps us as parents be more organised, and that lowers our stress. That brings it down for us. And it also helps to remind you that you're doing a good job as a parent. So it helps you to build your confidence, and just remind yourself that actually, I've got this.
Absolutely.
So yes, I just wanted to add a wee bit there about routine. Yeah,
definitely. Missed the beginning. Where can I hear the replay? Yes. So the recording will be uploaded on the Superheroes on YouTube, and I guess everyone who attended will get an email with a link as to how to access that. So. That's correct,
Yeah.
Katrina, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's on the there's a superheroes YouTube channel, and it's all of the webinars and question and answer sessions, and I think the quiz as well. I'm not sure, but everything, you know, all the series has been put up onto the YouTube page.
Brilliant. Any other questions, comments, or anything you would like to share? Katrina, do we have any other questions that's been sent to us?
We have one last question, which was, how can I support my 40-year-old daughter who self-harms and becomes aggressive when I try to help? Now, there's a little bit of context to this. So we have had a little bit extra information to say that they have been to CAMS for several years, and whilst there is signs of ASD, there's not anything significant for a diagnosis. So I think the daughter is okay 1 minute, and then the next minute she'll be self-harming, and it can often follow if, you know, after a friend has maybe said something.
Yeah. So obviously we've got some information, but we haven't got everything, because it is a big topic, and it's reliant on a number of things. But when a child or anyone self-harms, there's usually something else is going wrong, something else they feel, I don't know how to deal with that. And it can be very, very challenging for the parent who is so worried about their child. And the temptation is sometimes to police the child all the time. And whereas it's important to monitor the child to make sure that they are safe, it's also important not to police them, because you may get the opposite reaction, and it may not be helpful. And I guess also building the trust with the child, so that the child can maybe talk about what the issue behind the self-harm, the issue that leads to the self-harming. And I have seen children before who self-harmed and who recovered from self-harm, and the people who had a positive experience said, I was glad that my parents did not tell me off or shout at me for what I am doing, but they listened. And this as well is very important. But also, there's lots of help. There's lots of website, apps, text messages that is important to maybe make your child aware, because sometimes they want the help either in a confidential way, in an anonymous way. And there is a free app called Calm Harm, calmharm.co.uk, Calm Harm. And there's another app for teenagers, which is a peer support, which is called Me Too apps. And the Me Too is where teenagers support each other, but it's all moderated.
Is that Me Too as in M-E?
M-E-E.
M-E-E as in the number two, or and number two. So I'm just putting this down here. Me Too, M-E-E 2. I'm just putting that into the comments so people can see. Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, Mary.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, because again, depending on the child, but they may want this peer support where I'm not on my own, and everyone is on a different part of their journey. And I guess knowing that others have gone through this journey and found help and came out of that is also brilliant. And also there's 24/7 text messages, and for young people, like Young Mind Crisis as well is another sort of good one. Because I guess the child would feel, I want the help, but I don't want my parent to be worried all the time, asking me all the time, stopping me all the time. And sometimes empowering them by actually offering them the tools and sort of being available to listen when they are ready, not when we as the parent want to push them to talk or push them to change. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
I think I agree completely with what you've said, Mary, and those apps sound absolutely amazing. I think that's a great support for young people to have that, and I think empowering them, like you said, is a really good way of giving them the confidence and not normalizing what they're doing, but normalizing how they're feeling about it, and the fact that what they're doing is a coping mechanism. It's a way of dealing with a point in their life, and to remind them as well that this is just a time in their life. It's one point in their life. You know, it's a snapshot, and it's a point in life where they've got some difficult emotions to deal with. They've got overwhelming emotions to deal with, and they're using a coping mechanism to help them deal with that, and that's what it is. So it's reassuring and reminding them that you are there, that there's lots of support out there for people, and like you said, that there are other people who have gone through the same situation, so that we don't feel isolated and alienated. I think that's really, really important as parents. And I like what you said there about respecting not their privacy, but respecting the fact that we don't want to police them. We respect that we are building a trust, and we're here to support them. And I think, you know, the fact that what I was going to say was, don't police them. Absolutely not. As long as they're safe, but let them give them, to know that you're there to support them, but they're self-regulating, and you're here to support them, and you respect that. You're kind of stepping away from it in that moment, but encouraging that conversation and the reassurance, and letting them know that you're there, that you love them, that you support them, and then when they're feeling calmer, then you can talk about it, but not bringing it up, maybe going to a neutral place, doing it in a casual way when you're both relaxed, maybe in the car driving somewhere, or you're doing an activity together that you both enjoy, and let it come up naturally. Share your own experiences as a parent of difficult times that you've had to deal with, and how it felt for you, and what you did yourself, and maybe even add there that as you go through life just now, and you're in those moments where you maybe have a moment where you feel sad or angry or upset, and you're having a big difficult emotion, share it with your daughter, but in a positive way. Share it as a learning way to say, well, I'm feeling quite upset just now, but this is what I'm doing to help me, so that they can then learn different ways to regulate their emotions. And then they can understand, right, well, I can do this instead. Because when a lot of the time when we do self-harm, it's a communication, it's a way to express how we're feeling, because we can't always put it into words. So we can help them do that by giving them the words that we use when we're in that moment, so that they can then start to relate those emotions to an outcome, and to what they're doing, so that they can then start communicating in a different way.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you. There's a question here. What other webinars are coming up? I can open the...
I've got a sheet here. Just give me 1 second. I'll reach down and get the sheet to just check. So we had handling confrontations and conflicts last night.
Yeah.
We've got avoiding stress with Isabella on the 22nd. Then we have overcoming self-doubt on the 23rd. Then we've got an ADHD quiz on the 24th.
Yeah.
Do you want me to type? I don't know. I can type them up into the comments, Simone, so that you've got the dates then. That might be easier for you.
Yeah.
Avoiding stress, 22nd.
And I think possibly after the webinar, Katrina, by tomorrow, an email will go out to everyone.
With the information, yeah.
With the information. It's going to have a link to re-listen to this session, but also will have a link to all the other webinars. Yeah.
We've got quite a few coming up. Yeah, there's quite a few.
Yeah. They are going on until the end of March, so we've got quite a few there.
We've got a few quizzes there as well, which is again is a way to help encourage connection and for us all to come together and have a little bit of fun. Because as we say, like the moment as I touched on earlier, life is actually quite Groundhog Day at the moment. So we're all in our houses, we're all doing the same thing over and over again. So this is a way for us to sort of break that pattern a little bit. And whilst we're all doing something a little bit different tonight, it's still part of what we're doing every day. Whereas the quiz is going to be a little bit different. You know, we've given it a theme to the quiz, but it is just to help us, you know, so that we've got a focus for the night. But it is to, you know, for us to come together and have, you know, just a kind of general interaction and that connection.
Yeah, and we've got other just open question and answer sessions. So when you attend the webinars, if there isn't time to answer questions, just post them in the chat box and then we can answer them in the question and answer session, or whoever is running the question and answer session can answer them. All right, any other questions from anybody or any comments, anything you would like to share? Please don't be shy, just unmute yourself and say hey and share whatever you'd like to share.
We'd love to hear your voices.
Absolutely.
I found it quite strange. I was saying earlier on to Mary, I found it quite strange last night doing the webinar. Unfortunately, people couldn't see me because I was having some technical problems with the camera. So I was running a presentation, so I had slides for people to see, so they still had something visual, but everybody could hear me, but they couldn't see me. And I was promising I am actually a real person, but it was quite strange not being able to see anybody. I was just looking at a screen. So it's really good to talk to people.
Yes.
To help the difference.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody, any question, comment, or anything before we start wrapping up tonight? Just checking that we haven't missed anything in the chat box.
I don't think so. I think we've
covered all the,
yeah, I think we got it there.
Yeah, lots of positive comments. Thank you, everyone.
I think I've quite enjoyed it too.
Yeah. So is there anything, Katrina, that you'd like to say before we sort of wrap up? I know it's getting late and people are tired.
I think just from from my side, it's been really good to be able to interact with everybody tonight, and I just hope that this, some of the suggestions that we've made, and it's great that we've got the two of us coming at it from a different perspective. I think that's really also very helpful, rather than just one perspective, because we all can come with a different way of thinking about it, and that is really, really, really helpful. And just that everybody can take something away from it and adapt it to how it will work for them at home, because obviously the important thing is making it work for you. And in anything else that you don't then just forget about it, but take away from it what you think is going to be a benefit for you at home, and just be flexible with it. All the suggestions we've given you tonight, if we can stay flexible and adaptable, then because we have to keep changing. And some of the strategies that we've suggested tonight, we have to keep evolving them and moving them and changing them. But if you keep that focus and you're consistent, then that will come quite naturally to you. But yeah, just keep being flexible. Keep being flexible and be kind to yourself.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your time, your questions, your comments, and we hope to see you on other webinars. Have a very lovely, relaxing night.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think everyone's.
Yeah, and we stop recording.
Yes, I was recording, wasn't I?